What if your greatest song was also your last? These musicians walked into the studio as brothers and walked out as strangers. They created tracks that climbed the charts while their friendships collapsed behind closed doors. Fistfights backstage, lawsuits in courtrooms, careers destroyed by a single music video. Today we are counting down 10 songs that broke legendary rock bands. (1983). Los Angeles punk was at its peak. Bad Religion had just released How Could Hell Be Any Worse, a raw and blistering debut that made them heroes of the underground scene. Then they did the unthinkable. Their second album, Into the Unknown, abandoned the hardcore sound entirely. Swirling keyboards, 7-minute progressive rock epics, interstellar cover art that looked like it belonged on a science fiction novel. It was as if they had been listening to Yes and Kansas more than the Ramones. The backlash was brutal. Legend has it the label shipped 10,000 copies and received 11,000 back. When they premiered the new material live, only 12 people showed up. 12. Their drummer and bassist had already quit before the recording even finished. Vocalist Greg Graffin later called it a grand faux pas and a total disaster. Guitarist Brett Gurewitz described it simply as a prog disaster. The stress caused the band to completely disband. It took 5 years before Bad Religion could regroup and reclaim their punk throne with Suffer. Into the Unknown remains the album they essentially erased from their history, a reminder that sometimes the bravest experiments are also the ones that nearly kill you. By 1999, Guns N' Roses had been silent for almost 5 years. No new music, no Slash, no Duff, just Axl Rose and a revolving door of musicians working on the endless project that would become Chinese Democracy. When Oh My God finally emerged on the End of Days soundtrack, fans expected a triumphant return. Instead, they got something that sounded nothing like the band that had conquered the late 80s. Industrial guitars, Marilyn Manson-style production, Axl channeling someone other than himself. Critics described it as unusually tuneless. Others said it sounded like spare parts from 5 different songs bolted together. Slash himself, upon hearing the track, said it convinced him that his departure had been a wise decision. He and Axl were no longer on the same wavelength musically. Axl later admitted the song was an unfinished demo rushed out for the soundtrack, but the damage was done. For fans who had waited half a decade, Oh My God was confirmation that the Guns N' Roses they loved was truly gone. The reunion would take another 17 years. Imagine buying a new Lou Reed album in 1975. You had just experienced Walk on the Wild Side. You knew Transformer. You expected something brilliant. What you got instead was 4 sides of screeching guitar feedback. No melodies, no vocals, no songs. Just an hour of noise that sounded like seagulls circling over radioactive garbage. As one critic memorably described it, Metal Machine Music sold around 100,000 copies in its first 3 weeks. Then fans started returning it in droves. The record became one of the most returned albums in history. RCA pulled it from stores just 2 weeks after release and deleted it from their catalog entirely. The press was merciless. Rolling Stone called it the worst album of the year. Billboard recommended 0 cuts. Many believed Reed had deliberately created an unlistenable record to escape his contract. Reed himself defended it until his death, calling it his supreme act and his true legacy. But the album appeared on lists of the worst records ever made, and even on top 10 career suicides lists. It took years for Lou Reed to rebuild his reputation. The story of Cut the Crap is the story of a band that should have known when to stop. By 1985, The Clash had already achieved legendary status. London Calling, Combat Rock. They were called the only band that matters. But then Joe Strummer and Paul Simonon fired founding guitarist Mick Jones and drummer Topper Headon. The remaining members recruited 3 unknowns and went into the studio to make one more album. What emerged was Cut the Crap, featuring the defiant anthem We Are the Clash. The song was meant to declare that the band lived on. Instead, it became a symbol of everything wrong with the record: cheap drum machines, dated synthesizers, robot choir vocals chanting lyrics that now sounded hollow without the original members. Critics savaged it. One reviewer called the album the worst ever made by a major rock band. The song "We Are the Clash" was ranked dead last among all 139 Clash songs by one publication, described as a cartoon theme song with a sing-along choir. The album has been erased from the official Clash timeline. It is not mentioned in their documentary. It was excluded from every compilation and box set. Paul Simonon later said it was never considered a real Clash album because Jones and Hedden were not involved. "We Are the Clash" was not a battle cry. It was an epitaph. By 1971, tensions within Creedence Clearwater Revival had reached the breaking point. Tom Fogerty had already quit, exhausted by his brother John's total control over the band. The remaining trio decided to try something new. For their final album, Mardi Gras, each member would write and sing their own songs. It was supposed to be democratic. It turned out to be disastrous. Door to Door was written and sung by bassist Stu Cook. The production was odd, the mixing described as a sludge of mediocrity. Critics were brutal. One reviewer said the songs by Cook and drummer Doug Clifford were so bad they qualified as offensive. Rolling Stone opened their review by calling Mardi Gras, relative to the band's established level, the worst album ever heard from a major rock band. John Fogerty himself later said he would not even count Mardi Gras as a Creedence album. The record proved what many suspected. John Fogerty had been the creative engine all along. Without his singular vision, the band could not survive. Creedence Clearwater Revival disbanded just months after the album's release. They would never record together again. Do you remember when Creedence was the sound of American rock and roll? Billy Squier was supposed to be one of the biggest rock stars of the 1980s. 2 consecutive multi-platinum albums, massive arena tours, hit after hit climbing the charts. Then came the video for Rock Me Tonight. The song itself was a success, reaching number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, his highest charting single ever. But the video became an instant disaster. Directed by a choreographer who would later become famous for High School Musical, it showed Squier dancing around a bedroom in a pink tank top, writhing on satin sheets, flailing his arms in ways that looked nothing like a rock star. In a poll of over 400 music industry professionals for the book I Want My MTV, everyone agreed on one thing: Rock Me Tonight was the worst video ever made. Squier's concert ticket sales immediately collapsed. He watched his audience cut in half almost overnight. His girlfriend had warned him the video would ruin his career. She was right. Def Leppard's Joe Elliott said they watched through their fingers, saying Mick Jagger could get away with that kind of thing, but Billy Squier could not. Rudolf Schenker of the Scorpions said he could no longer take the music seriously after seeing the video. The pop audience deserted him permanently. Rock Me Tonight became the last top 40 hit of his career. A single video, just a few minutes long, undid years of work in an instant. "1996 should have been a victory lap for Van Halen. 4 consecutive #1 albums with Sammy Hagar, one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. Instead, Humans Being became the song that finally broke them apart. The band had agreed to take the first half of the year off. Eddie Van Halen needed hip surgery. Alex had neck problems. Sammy's wife was about to have their first child. But their manager convinced them to record a song for the blockbuster movie Twister. Sammy was in Hawaii, awaiting the birth of his daughter when the calls started coming. The Van Halen brothers wanted him in the studio immediately. He flew back and forth multiple times, tensions building with every trip. The lyrics became a battleground. Eddie rejected Sammy's ideas. The director had asked them not to write about tornadoes, but miscommunication led to more arguments. In the end, Sammy wrote verses in about 15 minutes on the hood of a car with the producer, recorded his vocals in 90 minutes, and left. Humans Being went to #1 on the rock charts. But weeks after the movie premiered, Sammy Hagar was out of the band. A famous phone call on Father's Day of 1996 sealed his departure. What should have been a simple soundtrack contribution became the final straw after 11 years together. Sammy later said he was not happy about leaving, but he was not happy in the band either. It was a real tipping point. Randy Meisner had one of the most beautiful falsetto voices in rock history. When he hit those soaring high notes on Take It to the Limit, audiences went absolutely wild. That was exactly the problem. The song was released in 1975 as part of the One of These Nights album. It became a top 10 hit and the only Eagles single to feature Meisner on lead vocals. Fans demanded it at every concert. But Meisner was primarily a harmony singer. He was not confident as a frontman. Night after night, the pressure of hitting those impossible notes in front of massive crowds began to break him. He developed anxiety about performing the song. His stomach ulcer flared up. He caught the flu on the road. By June of 1977, the band had been touring for 11 months straight. Everyone was exhausted. When they reached Knoxville, Tennessee, Meisner told the others he could not go back out for an encore. Glenn Frey was furious. Words were exchanged. Meisner threw a punch. Security had to separate them. The rest of the tour was brutal. Nobody spoke to Meisner. When the tour ended, he left the band he had helped to create. Take It to the Limit was barely played after his departure. Frey handled vocals in a lower key, but it was never the same. The song that fans loved most had become the song Randy Meisner could no longer bear to sing. For years, Blister in the Sun was the definition of an underground anthem. It never had a traditional hit, it never needed one. The song spread through word of mouth, college radio, and pure devotion from fans who discovered the violent femmes on their own terms. That authenticity was everything to the band's identity. They were the opposite of corporate rock. Then, in 2007, fans heard the opening acoustic riff in the most unexpected place, a Wendy's commercial. Lead singer Gordon Gano had licensed the song to the fast food chain without consulting bassist Brian Ritchie. The reaction was explosive. Ritchie went public with his fury, accusing Gano of greed, insensitivity, and poor taste. He called the use of their signature song to sell burgers disgusting. He filed a federal lawsuit seeking half ownership of the band's catalog and millions in damages. Ritchie claimed the commercial had damaged the band's anti-commercial reputation. Their existing fan base felt betrayed. Everything the violent femmes had stood for seemed to crumble over a fish sandwich advertisement. The lawsuit dragged on. The band officially broke up in 2009. It took until 2013 for them to reconcile enough to perform together again, lured back by an offer from Coachella that was too lucrative to refuse. But the friendship was gone. Ritchie and Gano have admitted they do not really have a relationship anymore. They still play together because show business is not show friendship. In the year 2000, Metallica was still one of the biggest metal bands in the world. They had survived lineup changes, musical evolution, and the pressures of decades in the spotlight. Then they discovered that an unfinished demo of their new song, I Disappear, was being played on radio stations across America before they had even released it. The leak was traced to a file-sharing platform called Napster. When the band investigated further, they found their entire catalog available for free download. Drummer Lars Ulrich was livid. He tracked down over 335,000 usernames of people allegedly sharing Metallica songs and delivered the 60,000-page list to Napster's office. He demanded they all be banned. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Metallica, once champions of the underground, were now being called greedy corporate villains. Fans who had grown up on their music felt betrayed. Other musicians piled on. Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue said Metallica were hogs who deserved to be slaughtered. At the MTV Video Music Awards, Napster's co-founder appeared wearing a Metallica shirt and joked that a friend shared it with him. Metallica won the lawsuit. Napster eventually shut down, but the damage to the band's image lasted for years. The controversy became a stain on their legacy that overshadowed I Disappear completely. That is the thing about rock and roll. The songs last forever, but the bands don't. Somewhere right now, someone is hearing Blister in the Sun for the first time, discovering Take It to the Limit, or pressing play on a Metallica track without knowing the war it started. Which of these breakups still keeps you up at night? Drop your answer in the comments.